Yo, 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 yo. Just realized I'm not skill specs, and this is a Bodhi video. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a kind of a spoiler, actually, with what I'm currently geared up to be doing in game to my collection log videos. I'll very quickly get into this to my subscribers and anyone just watching this video on the one-off. New collection log video out soon. I literally have all the footage. I just haven't edited it yet because I'm ugly and I've been in France. So that is that. Now, that being said, today I just finished watching, or it hasn't even ended yet. But I've just finished. I'm gonna just do some barrows actually while I do this. I've just finished watching, and it hasn't ended yet. The winter, or the old school summer winter, the old school winter summit that basically has been. It's basically Jagex's event of the year where they announce the updates that they're planning for the 2023 of the game. It's not really quite spoilers because everything still needs to pass polls. It's just kind of an update to what they're thinking to kind of gauge a player's understanding of what they're actually thinking with what's going on. Now, this video is only going to be focusing on one of the things that they actually decided to talk about. And at some point, I might just stand still. By the way, I'm doing barrows because I haven't done a live commentary in a very long time. And I might want to get some points across without being distracted. So I'm going to do one barrows run, and then I'm just going to bank stand and talk about it. And the one I want to talk about specifically, obviously the title gives this away, is that Jagex have mentioned that they still, to this day, and not trying to say that in like a negative kind of way, like I'm automatically against it, they still, to this day, want to try and bring a new skill into old school RuneScape. Now, for me personally, I'm going to go again here and just be completely honest and unbiased. I voted no to the previous skill warding. I didn't like the concept of warding. It felt like an idea they were just putting a skill in the game for the sake of having a skill in the game. If you voted yes, obviously, whatever. There was also Artisan they spoke about a while ago, which has an idea. It does actually make a bit of sense. Not live. Very sorry, Yolando. I literally have logged in to create this video. However, this video and what I want to speak about, depending if I pull a nice, beautiful item from this Barrows chest, is that, in my opinion, as a long-time player of the game, and personally what happens to the game, I don't mind. If they add a new skill, I will get it to 99. That's a fact. I'm not going to get it to 200 mil because I'm not after that. But simply put, as a player of the game, they can add almost any skill they want that passes a poll, and I'm going to personally train it. It doesn't bother me that much. However, what I personally think is that Jagex, sorry, let me reword that. Old School RuneScape's been out for about 9 years now, coming on 10 years next year. It will be out for 10 years. And if that, to let this settle in as a little fact, the day the wilderness was removed in Old School RuneScape, something like that, since the beginning of the game, Old School's almost like double that age at this point. Not quite, actually, but Old School is an older game from the day of release to now than the beginning of RuneScape's very first day to the day the wilderness was removed, which is a fun fact that I like to say. And the reason why I want to make this video is because I say this on stream a lot, but I want to speak about this point. And that point is that if they are ever going to bring a new skill to Old School RuneScape, I think there should only be one more skill ever added to this game. Forever. Now, when I say forever, let's say the game is doubled in life. And let's say it takes Jagex a year and a half to even develop the skill, or let's say it does come out in 2023. Let's fast forward the clock to the year 2030, where the game will now be double the age and they have one extra new skill in the game. Does it still work? I feel nowadays most people play this game for the PVM aspect. Or 4.6 billion. There's a lot of things. I can't say what most people do, to be honest. I don't have any stats in front of me. It's just me saying that. But there's many reasons why I think there should only be one skill. And one of those is because I think if Jagex kind of say in the draw, in like the boardroom or something like, right, we are making one skill for this game that might last another 20 years. It has to be good. It has to be perfect. It can't be something that's just added for the sake of it, in my opinion. It's got to be incredible. It has to be the best skill RuneScape's ever seen to be added. Now, certain things like fire making and probably thieving, they would never be added to this day in a poll. They're all trash in comparison to what this skill has to be now with what the game knowledge of players actually have, if that makes sense. If Jagex made a poll saying, hey, you can now cut logs into bows to create your ammunition because fletching didn't exist, no one gives a shit. Obviously, there's probably an idea out of that you can kind of break down of what doesn't currently exist in the game and can go back to it. But just something like that, it doesn't work, you know? Many people have got 99. There's over 10,000, 20,000 even people maxed in the game. People have played forever and have had 99 in certain skills and all that stuff. Now, this video is trying not to go out to the elite side of the game. It's just trying, in my opinion, to add a skill that I think should just be perfect. And I think, personally, there should be one more skill added to this game, if ever, and that skill doesn't have to come next year. It could come in 2026. It just has to be the right skill. And one of the very niche reasons I think that is simply if I open this stat bar, it perfectly closes everything off. This total level of 2277 can be moved over to here, because obviously you can see total level 2277. This isn't required. The final skill would have a nice emblem here, color scheme, maybe something kind of like a bright cyan blue, kind of like summoning, maybe something that stands out and just looks simply put nice. Now, that's a very small thing, so hopefully you guys watching this video have watched 6 minutes of me talk about nothing as of yet, and you're not about to close the video because I say the only reason there should be one more skill is because of that. The main reason there should be one more skill is because it just simply put has to be a masterpiece of a skill. It's very important. It can't flop. It's an 8-year conversation, might be a 9-year, maybe 10-year conversation by the time it even gets put into the game. And it can't flop, in my opinion, just for that aspect, simply for that. Now, that all being said, I personally think a new skill with those attributes of just simply being a masterpiece and providing everything you could ever want in the game, bluntly put, the skill has to be sailing. Or a concept of something to do with sailing. Now, there is no concept to sailing ever created. You might hear the word sailing, you're like, no, I don't want that, it's trash. But you've never really thought about the infinite potential this skill can have. Let me just go out of the portal right now. A quick one to sailing. I'm going to ramble. Is you now have access. You could stick a little island here. And the only way to get there is a boat that you have to take, and that requires 37 sailing. What's on this island? I don't know, just chuck some snake grass and some red spider eggs or something, some little spawn or something that could be nice. You know, you can stick an island out here. You can maybe sail to here, sail to there, maybe one up more. There's another island here between here. Add a shortcut maybe, so the fastest way to... It's just like, you know, you can do anything. And like, if I find like you can put a giant island here, that can only be accessed if you have 70 sailing, let's just say, hypothetically. But if you add the skill sailing to the game, you open up, without increasing the size of our current map, you open up all of the ocean. Everything. Look at this right here. I don't even know what this is right now. That must be Crash Island for Monkey Madness. Tiny little island. You can stick another one of them in this big box round here. It just, you know, cause a tsunami. Let's just increase the water levels by like 20 feet or something, whatever RuneScape is, and just add a little island, you know, a little peninsula down here or something. That'd work well. But that is, first of all, no one's ever cut this tree in the history of the game. That's just basically a concept to where you can put so much stuff into the game from anywhere in every different style of the game. We can have an expansion to Mauritania here in an island that requires a sailing level of Mauritania's kind of got some high-end stuff, maybe level 60, 70 or something. An expansion to Feminic could be level 40. Expansion to Lunar Isle, you need 60 mining to get on this higher skill, maybe 60 sailing. An expansion to Zaya, you could do a bazillion for Zaya with a couple of islands around the place. And then obviously a little expansion out from the Elfland. This transportation right here, I don't even know what it does, take you to here level 80 or something like that. But the one key point that I think sailing being a perfect skill and the ability to turn into a masterclass of a skill or a masterpiece of a skill is that if you released sailing right now and sailing came with 10 islands, let's just say, and all of them required a level of 10 to go to, so it's 10, 20, 30, 40 sailing up to level 90 or 99 sailing, let's say hypothetically, the moment all the content placed onto islands above level 1 sailing, let's say, is in the game, those items are not going to be achieved in the first 24 hours, 48 hours, first week. It's not going to happen. The longest item in the history of old school, off the top of my head, randomly making this up, not including, I think, a glitch, which I want to say might be a pet in the Chambers of Xeric, was the Infernal Cape. As far as I'm aware, that's the longest item that was in the game from the day one or the 1 second of its release that took the longest for any player in the game to actually obtain. The only other one I'm thinking of right now is pets, you know. I think the omelet pet, I think, didn't exist for a long time. There's no way that wasn't glitched. I'm just saying straight away. I still don't stand to this day that was in the game. No, it's it's astronomically and just outrageous that those odds never came up or anything. But let's just say that you played old school for as long as you have, and then just to kind of cut to the concept that sailing's past. It's 2024. You wake up at 11 a.m. There's a game update on. Jagex have their servers working, so there's no rollback today, and sailing is live. Bam! And suddenly, they also mentioned you can collect experience in sailing in certain quests like Cabin Fever or Pirate's Treasure. You know, 500 experience in Pirate's Treasure gets you level 4. Cabin Fever gets you to like level 19, 21. Then you can take all the charter boats that might give you a bit of experience, maybe one-time use that gives you the experience in sailing, the coins used in sailing might divided by 10 or something like that. And then you're level 27. And immediately unlocking in, you have 2 islands you can go to with brand new content that no one knows what is on there, except for what may be past the pot. So you can go to those islands. But then also at the same time, there is this island that requires level 90 sailing to get to, that no one can get to for 3 solid weeks because people, one, need to work out the most efficient way to train the skill, and then they also need to play enough to get there, which obviously nowadays is very simple for most of the high-level community. They play a lot. You know, I play like 10 to 14 hours a day if I'm not doing anything else in my life. So that island will be unlocked. But then it's the idea, especially if you want to return it to like kind of like a Twitch-related or a YouTube thing, that no one in the game has seen what is on that island. And then suddenly our first player by the name of Telma Marquez or, you know, King Duffy or something, some random guy called Skillspecs just has level 90 on the high scores. And suddenly on Reddit, on Twitter, on the Facebook, whatever, there are images of what's going on with this guy providing it to the whole game, right-clicking monsters that are level 546 that can just be farmed, right-clicking the entrance to a raid. Like, a raid could be locked behind a point where there needs to be 5 players getting the level. Then they can all go and do it. Are these 5 players very good at PvM? Maybe they're not. Maybe they just played the most, so they can't clear the raid for 3 days. And then a new team comes in, 72 hours of an uncompleted raid, who are much better at PvM, can suddenly get in there and tackle the raid with what they know, and they beat the raid. And when they beat the raid, they don't get the new items. These new items are still not in the game 24 days after the release of the update. And finally, on day 25, 26, 27, 1 comes into the game. The price of that item, the pure, just, it's like looking at a whip back in 2006, 2005, a fire cape back in 2005 or 6. It's an item that it's locked behind stuff. It takes a long time to get it. And the update itself is just permanently something to work towards. It's like the only way that this is a bad concept is, 1, oh, I don't play the game enough. Well, you can get there eventually, you know. I used to play RuneScape an hour a day, and I still managed to do certain things when I used to do it. This is just using me as a concept. Nowadays, yes, I can play 10 hours a day, and yes, I could partake in all this content. I would get there. But another one is just more like having something in the game that is not completed on day 1 is permanent hype. Imagine how the community would be reacting knowing that people are racing to get to a thing that they don't know what's there. And on the way to getting to this, assuming there's a level 90 island with a raid, let's just say, there's a level 80 island, there's a level 70 island, there's a level 60 island that unlocks new stuff, some random fishing minigame or something, you know. Maybe you go to a different place, there's a giant volcano that explodes and you've got to fight waves of monsters, and then you can like tame the volcano, and once you get that, you get a volcano pet and it follows you around everywhere, just spewing lava on people hitting 99s. So we can recreate the Falador Massacre. No one knows it's going to happen. It is, in my opinion, that's my concept, by the way. This is all my concept. My concept is simply put, very TLDR, sailing in the game, created for a long period of time to be completely fine-tuned, to be a masterpiece of a skill, where when it releases, it is incredible for every single player, particularly the players who can play the most, the veterans of the game, and it brings out a skill that no one doesn't want to do on the day of release. Simply put, they bring out something like warding, I can wait a week and wait for the best experience rate. It doesn't bring me anything. Sailing comes out and I have an island I can get to that I need to get to ASAP. I'm playing the game 27 hours a day to get there. You know, I've got to get there. But another one that I really think really is well locked behind a skill like sailing, apart from the fact that it opens the entire oceans of the game, it opens potential shortcuts. You know, I'm at Piscatoris. I take a Piscatoris banner level 4, and there's a shortcut here, let's say, that takes me to Waterbirth Island Dungeon. That's faster than a Waterbirth telly, but might require 47 sailing. Random ideas like that. You can add sailing shortcuts across the game to all over the place. Different ways, different concepts, just new monsters, new bosses, new herb patch for the Iron Man, you know, new Slayer dungeon. It has infinite potential. And the main thing with sailing that I think is good is there can always be an expansion in the future. You know, they bring out a skill. Bare bones has to be amazing, obviously, from the bat. It can't be bare bones on day one, but it can be incredible on day one. It just works, and it works really well. And it holds the hype that we don't have anymore, that sense of mystery that we don't have anymore of back in the day when RuneScape had a system update. 2 minutes long, not 30 minutes, no idea it was going to happen. You would run to the Mage Guild, any rune shop, because the runes would stack to 5,000 back then, and try and buy as many as you could, because you could sell them for a profit. And then the update came out, and you had no idea what the update was. And it's suddenly, hey guys, here's a hunter skill, here's a slayer skill, here's a new quest. And you had no idea. Nowadays, we know everything that comes out. We vote on it. If they bring sailing, we can vote on so much stuff that we have no idea what order it comes in, because it's hidden behind the sailing skill. People can probably work out by like looking into code or something like that. But just the idea of knowing that you have to train this skill and so much new stuff is available that you don't know or can't get on day one, and seeing people unlock it and kind of spoil it for yourself, but just having that interest once again on things that you don't know, that mystery, the unknown, you know, I think it would be fantastic. And that's personally why I think the video is quite long. I don't know how many of you have listened to it, but I'll try and wrap everything up I just said here so I can put a TLDR in. A TLDR is basically that if a new skill comes to old school RuneScape, it has to be a masterpiece of a skill. Because I think if they do bring a new skill, it should be the only new skill ever added to the game. Game's almost 10 years old. They had one new skill. Do they want to add 3 more in the next 5 years? We don't know. They bring one new skill. It has to be something with infinite potential. And that infinite potential, I personally think, and ends a lifelong meme in this game, is the sailing skill. It would go right here. It would look beautiful. Some boat, maybe, like I said, a colorful boat that stands out and looks awesome. The total level of 2277, the total experience still exists in the game right here, so they don't change anything. They just remove that, and the stats page looks perfect and neat. And they have one chance to do that, unless they add 4 more new skills and add an extra little row here, or start messing with the math of what's here, which I've not done in my head. And the sailing skill, my concept on paper, sounds great. Dev time, you know, easier said than done is the biggest problem here. Sailing can bring us that mystery of an update that we can't do on immediately because it's locked behind a sailing skill. As a concept I said before, if you skip to the TLDR, when the Slayer skill came out, a whip wasn't in the game for a month, let's just say. When the sailing skill comes out, there's an island that requires 90 sailing to get to. No one gets to that island for a month. And then when they get there, we see on Reddit, we see on Twitter, we see on Facebook pictures. And we're all interested in these pictures. And we want to see what is going on. And we are training the skill to get there. And it provides that interest, that addiction, that hype, that mystery. And then it can bring so much new content to the table, all available on the very first day of sailing, but also at the same time not available on the first day of sailing. Something we all have to work towards. And that's why I personally believe that sailing is and has to be, or a skill similar, doesn't have to be called sailing, that provides that. It comes with an infinite expansion. Anywhere in the ocean, you can add shortcuts that require sailing to certain areas that don't have niche teleports or something. You can have higher restricted sailing areas and lower restricted areas. You can have all the quests that requires boats give you slight sailing experience. Things like the charter boats can give you a very minor experience. It's like a one-off. So when the skill comes into the game, everyone's level 1, but everyone can get level 26 instantly if they've done everything in the game. 2 islands immediately unlocked, explored, all out there. Everyone knows. But then it's the race. The 26 sailing, moving on. Who's the first to unlock Island 3 at 30? Island 4 at 40, Island 5 at 50, and so on until someone unlocks Island 9 at 90. And no one knows what's on there. We might know there's a raid, but we don't know anything about the raid. And only one person has access to this island, and they go in, they might not be the best PVMer like I said before, and they right-click monsters level 500 and they die over and over again. And with the raid being accessed within 24 hours, no one can complete it because only one guy can get there. And after a period of time, people who are good enough at the game mechanically, both PVM-wise and can now play the hours to put the sailing in, get to the raid and they start cracking through it. And then eventually the raid items come into the game 3 to 4 weeks later after the skill releases, but they're in the game from day one. A whip on the day of Slayer took 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks to come into the game. An item from some locked behind sailing can be the same. Something that if you look at it, you're like, holy shit, that's sick. An Inferno Cape took a bit over 72 hours, I think, to come into the game. And like I said before, that's the longest item that ever had to come into RuneScape, except for potentially some pets that I think might have been glitched. But that's why I think sailing will be sick. It provides us that mystery. It brings a skill everyone wants to do if it's created correctly. And it would just be fantastic. And that's why I personally think if Jagex to add any skill to this game, they should add one skill to the game permanently from now. And it needs to be a masterpiece. And I think sailing, created roughly in the concept I said, is that skill. I think it really should be. The only problem is, again, easier said than done. Can the Jagex team create it? How long does it take? How long would you wait for sailing? I would wait 5 years for a perfect skill to come out personally. You know, I enjoy the game now. I'll enjoy the game in 5 years, hopefully. There's enough PVM coming out now. They create a skill. It's got to be done perfectly, and I think it'd be brilliant. That's my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you like some of my ideas, if my ideas even got you hyped about the concept of it, it is just my thought process and why I think it should happen. If it happens, and I don't think it should even happen in a rush. It should happen whenever. I've no idea how to close this video out because I'm just excited speaking about the idea of this even coming to the game. And if I'm deadly honest, a community behind an idea like this, no one wants to see something like autism. No one wants to see something like, you know, carpenter. You know, we don't want to see flax spinning 5,000. We definitely want to see that, by the way, just saying. We want to see something big that brings a lot. And that's why I think sailing should be the only skill. So, I'm going to end the video here before I ramble any further. Let me know your thoughts. Winter Summit, by the way, fantastic production quality from Jagex. Really, really enjoyed the entire thing. I'm excited for everything next year. It's going to be awesome, and I'm excited. A lot of collection log slots to do as well. PvP-related collection log slots as well. You know, mate, we're going to have to be bringing those switches back and maybe dropping West Ham on his head, mate, you know.